Imagine this. A game made by one person in their bedroom beats a studio with 400 employees. Not because it's prettier, not because it's bigger, but because it's weirder. Indie games don't just break the rules, they act like the rules never existed in the first place. They give you levels inspired by nightmares, characters who talk like someone's diary entries, and bugs so goofy you actually love them. Somehow, it works. In fact, it often works better than the clean, polished stuff. Indie games feel different because indie developers live differently. They build games out of 3 a.m. thoughts, random fears, bizarre tweets, and ideas no big studio would ever risk. They chase one mechanic like it owes them money, releasing games that are half broken but wholehearted, and somehow you end up caring more than you ever cared about a $200 million blockbuster. Today we're going deeper. Not top 10 indie weird games, but the anatomy behind why indie games hit so hard. If AAA studios follow a rulebook, indie devs use it as a coaster. Big studios have meetings, committees, approval pipelines. Indie devs follow whatever idea hits them in the shower. That's why indie games get away with things that shouldn't work at all. Some punish you for doing nothing. Stand still for too long, the world collapses. Open the wrong door, boom, credits. Say a single banned phrase into your mic, the story resets. No studio exec would approve that. But an indie dev, they'd go, wait, what if that was the whole game? Players love it. When you're playing an indie game, you're never fully sure what's possible. It's like the laws of physics change every 5 minutes. 1 minute you're solving a puzzle, the next, the puzzle is solving you. There's a thrill in that uncertainty, the feeling that the game might surprise you at any second. Indies aren't afraid to build a game around one weird mechanic, just one. Not 40 systems, not 20 power-ups, not a crafting tree that looks like a family diagram, just one obsession pushed to the limit. That focus allows them to take the mechanic to places big studios never would. They can make a game revolve entirely around time rewinding, deleting the world, or reading your computer files to creep you out. It's small, but powerful. Indie games don't start as ideas. They start as accidents, nightmares, inside jokes, random 3 a.m. thoughts, or one line in a notebook that was never meant to become a whole world. Some of the best indie games were born from moments that sound like confessions. A developer once built an entire level because of a recurring nightmare. Another dev based a combat system on a sarcastic tweet. One horror game exists because the developer's PC kept crashing at exactly 3:17 a.m., and that glitch became a core mechanic. Take Celeste. The team began with a game jam prototype in just 4 days. The original concept was a climbing game with tight controls, but the story of Madeline's journey emerged later. Strawberry collectibles, assist mode, and other refinements were added iteratively based on player feedback. This included fixing levels that players repeatedly failed due to unclear jump distances, a small design tweak that made the core mechanic feel fair without losing difficulty. Indie devs can experiment mid-development in ways AAA studios simply cannot. Or Hollow Knight. Team Sherry, a 3-person team from Australia, spent years hand-drawing their world. The first demo had barely any polish, but the mechanics were fully playable. Every design decision, nail combat, enemy placement, secret areas, was tested, scrapped, and rebuilt hundreds of times. When testers struggled with certain boss fights, the team adjusted attack patterns or added subtle visual cues, showing how small tweaks in level and enemy design can drastically improve player experience. Even Undertale, largely created by one person, proves this principle. Toby Fox began with simple combat prototypes and story ideas. The quirky dialogue and player choice mechanics evolved through feedback from friends. He noticed early testers weren't connecting emotionally with certain encounters, so he rewrote dialogue, tweaked battle pacing, and added the mercy option. That single mechanic redefined player choice, pacing, and emotional investment. Without big studio limitations, he could risk mechanics that would never pass traditional publisher review. AA games are designed in conference rooms. Indie games are designed in feelings. Sometimes curiosity, sometimes boredom, sometimes heartbreak. Sometimes, wouldn't it be hilarious if the game only worked when you whispered into the mic? And before long, that joke becomes a mechanic, the mechanic becomes a game, and the game becomes someone's life for a year. You can feel where an indie game came from. Dream-inspired levels feel dreamlike. Fear-inspired worlds feel hostile. Memory-inspired dialogue hits harder than it should. Big studios polish every human touch out, but indies leave fingerprints everywhere. That's what makes them memorable. Many indie games launch rough. Animations aren't perfect, physics get weird, characters clip into walls, and somehow, players embrace it. It's not because standards are low, it's because indie games follow a different logic, and those rough edges often improve the experience. Indie devs invest in the core mechanic, not polish. Gameplay feels sharper, more intentional. Players remember the system, not the shine. Limitations drive creativity. Solo devs use silhouettes, flat colors, or exaggerated movements to make every moment readable. Games like Limbo, Celeste, Vampire Survivors, and Hollow Knight aren't visually complex, but clarity, chaos, and emotion hit harder than realism ever could. Even glitches add value. In AA games, bugs are failures. In indie games, they are transparency. You sense the person behind the code. Slightly unpredictable physics, quirky interactions, or inconsistent jumps keep players alert. Players value intention over perfection. Strong ideas, bold mechanics, and unique experiences outweigh rough edges. Imperfections aren't mistakes. They're evidence the developer dared to be different. Indie developers face constant design challenges. They balance innovation with playability, iterating dozens of times to ensure mechanics are engaging but not frustrating. Level design must communicate rules without tutorials. Art and sound must convey emotion despite tight budgets. Vampire Survivors, for example, had to carefully tune hundreds of upgrade combinations to avoid overpowered synergies that would trivialize gameplay. Celeste's team adjusted jump physics over dozens of iterations until climbing felt precise yet forgiving. Hollow Knight's secret areas were tested repeatedly to ensure exploration rewarded players without leaving them stuck or frustrated. Every tweak, no matter how small, can make or break the player experience. AA games often feel repetitive, and it's not laziness, it's economics. When a single project costs $80 to $300 million, studios stop thinking like artists and start thinking like risk managers. A failure can tank a department or a company, so studios chase what's statistically safe. Open-world action games sell, more open-world action games. Shooters with progression systems sell, suddenly every studio wants them. Even new mechanics are filtered through market analysis. If it doesn't fit known demand, it's reshaped or cut. Repetition also stems from developer fatigue. Pipelines are rigid. Once production starts, ideas rarely survive. Massive teams dilute originality, approvals multiply, and every new mechanic is scrutinized. Tools and engines are better than ever, but expectations are higher. Massive worlds, smooth animations, bug-free launches, constant updates. Developers spend most of their time maintaining systems, not inventing new mechanics. That's why indie games matter. Small budgets, smaller teams, and micro-audiences allow experimentation. Every major shift in gaming started with an indie breakthrough. Survival craft exploded because of Minecraft. Roguelikes returned because of The Binding of Isaac. Modern horror changed after Amnesia and Five Nights at Freddy's. Minimalistic storytelling became mainstream after Limbo and Inside. Indie innovation feeds AA adoption, which drives industry change. Tools are cheaper, engines accessible, AI-assisted workflow speed prototyping. One dev now builds in weeks what a studio once spent months on. Indie weirdness isn't random, it's research and development for the entire industry. Indie games don't just fill gaps, they steer gaming forward. Every strange mechanic, bizarre art style, or unexpected narrative becomes material for the next AA trend. These aren't just quirks, they're experiments reshaping the industry. Indiness equals identity, and identity is what AA has accidentally removed. Indie devs innovate first,
AA adapts second, and players get better games. Yes, games feel repetitive right now, but the cure is already here. It's the developer in their bedroom at 3 a.m. breaking rules, experimenting, daring to try something new. Every time they succeed, they push the industry forward. Weirdness isn't the flaw. It's the spark that keeps gaming alive.